At 95, Clint Eastwood speaks with a calm that feels earned rather than rehearsed. His reflections carry no urgency, only perspective, shaped by nearly a century of living, working, and watching the world change. Born during the Great Depression, Eastwood grew up without illusions about comfort or certainty. Frequent moves across California taught him adaptability and self-reliance, while a quiet temperament made him an observer long before he became a storyteller. Music, especially jazz, nurtured his appreciation for rhythm, restraint, and mood, qualities that later defined both his performances and his direction. He never chased attention or approval, and that distance allowed him to see Hollywood clearly. Now in his later years, Eastwood reflects not with bitterness, but with clarity, speaking thoughtfully about the industry, its evolution, and figures like Rob Reiner, who represent broader cultural shifts rather than personal conflicts. A career built against expectations. Clint Eastwood's path to success was never smooth or guaranteed. Early rejection at Universal Pictures could have ended his ambitions, as studio executives dismissed his voice, appearance, and perceived lack of charisma. Instead, those setbacks hardened his resolve and taught him patience. When Rawhide finally gave him stability, it also revealed limitations, prompting him to take the bold risk of leaving American television for Italian cinema. That decision reshaped his life. The Dollars trilogy did more than make him a star. It gave him control. His minimalist performances redefined masculinity on screen, favoring implication over explanation. Eastwood learned that silence could be powerful and that audiences were capable of interpretation. These lessons stayed with him. From the beginning, he resisted conformity, choosing growth over approval and curiosity over certainty, a philosophy that would later define both his filmmaking and his worldview. From icon to craftsman behind the camera, as Eastwood transitioned into directing, his approach mirrored his personality: economical, disciplined, and respectful. He avoided excess, trusted actors, and let stories breathe. His films often explored aging, regret, and moral consequence without judgment or easy answers. Unforgiven marked a turning point, dismantling the myths that once defined his own screen image. It wasn't a rejection of his past, but an honest reckoning with it. Awards followed, but Eastwood never chased them. Instead, he continued telling stories that asked questions rather than offering conclusions. Films like Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, and Gran Torino reflected a filmmaker unafraid of discomfort or ambiguity. International recognition only reinforced his belief that storytelling transcends borders when it respects complexity. To Eastwood, art was never about being right, but about being truthful, even when truth unsettled audiences. Hollywood, then and now. Looking back, Eastwood often contrasts the Hollywood of his early years with the one that exists today. He remembers an industry driven by craft, collaboration, and creative friction. Artists disagreed openly, sometimes fiercely, yet still worked together with mutual respect. Differences were fuel, not disqualifications. Eastwood believes that spirit has gradually faded, replaced by a culture that rewards certainty over curiosity. In his view, modern Hollywood often confuses conviction with superiority, narrowing the range of acceptable perspectives. This shift troubles him, not because it excludes him personally, but because it limits storytelling. Art, he insists, thrives on openness and risk. When filmmakers feel pressured to align with approved views, honesty suffers. Eastwood does not romanticize the past, but he mourns the loss of an environment where disagreement was seen as a strength rather than a flaw. Rob Reiner as a symbol, not a target. When Clint Eastwood speaks about Rob Reiner, his tone is measured and reflective. He acknowledges Reiner's talent and credits his early films for their warmth, humor, and strong sense of character. Eastwood does not question Reiner's skill as a filmmaker. Instead, he views him as emblematic of a broader cultural transformation within Hollywood. To Eastwood, the concern is not political alignment, but philosophical approach. He senses a shift from asking questions to asserting answers, from exploration to certainty. Reiner's outspoken public presence represents in Eastwood's eyes a culture increasingly intolerant of disagreement. This observation is not offered as an attack, but as a reflection on how storytelling has changed. Eastwood emphasizes that Reiner did not create this environment, but appears comfortable within it, a distinction that matters deeply to him. Questions versus conclusions. Eastwood draws a clear line between his own creative philosophy and what he perceives in much of modern Hollywood. He has never believed his role was to instruct audiences on what to think. Instead, he sought to present characters and situations honestly, trusting viewers to wrestle with meaning themselves. Whether depicting violence, redemption, or moral failure, his films aimed to provoke reflection rather than deliver judgment. In contrast, Eastwood feels that some contemporary storytelling prioritizes conclusions over inquiry. To him, certainty closes doors that art should leave open. He worries that when filmmakers focus on winning arguments, they lose sight of human complexity. This is where he sees the true divide with figures like Reiner. It is not about ideology, but about whether art invites conversation or demands agreement. For Eastwood, the former is essential to meaningful cinema. The cost of fear in creativity. One of Eastwood's deepest concerns lies with younger filmmakers navigating today's industry. He senses a climate where fear shapes creative choices, where deviation from accepted viewpoints feels risky. In his experience, fear has never produced great art. Creativity, he believes, requires freedom, including the freedom to be wrong, misunderstood, or uncomfortable. Eastwood does not claim censorship or personal silencing. His career and legacy are secure. Instead, he worries about voices that never emerge because they feel constrained. When artists self-censor to avoid backlash, storytelling becomes narrower and less honest. Eastwood sees this as a loss not just for filmmakers, but for audiences who deserve stories that reflect the full spectrum of human experience. His reflections are less about nostalgia and more about preservation, safeguarding the conditions that allow art to challenge, surprise, and endure. Personal life and earned perspective. Eastwood's reflections are shaped by a life marked by both achievement and complexity. His long marriage to Maggie Johnson, though imperfect, grounded him during his rise to fame and taught him about responsibility and consequence. Family life, career ambition, and personal flaws intersected in ways that left lasting impressions. These experiences tempered his worldview, reinforcing humility and self-awareness. Eastwood does not present himself as a moral authority. He speaks as someone who has lived with the consequences of his choices. This honesty informs his perspective on art and culture. He understands that people are complicated, capable of growth and contradiction. That understanding fuels his resistance to simplistic narratives and rigid judgments. It also explains his reluctance to frame disagreements as battles. For Eastwood, life is too layered for absolutes, and storytelling should reflect that truth. Legacy without bitterness. At 95, Clint Eastwood expresses no desire to settle scores or rewrite history. His comments about Rob Reiner are not revelations, but reflections shaped by time. He harbors no grudges and speaks without anger. What matters to him now is legacy, not in terms of awards or box office success, but in preserving the freedom to tell stories honestly. Eastwood would rather make a film that unsettles than one that flatters. He believes art should challenge complacency, not reinforce it. In the end, his truth about Rob Reiner is less about an individual and more about an industry. It is the quiet lament of an artist watching curiosity give way to conformity. For Eastwood, that shift matters far more than names or headlines, because it shapes the future of storytelling itself.